Sadie, great to see you, and thanks for making a bit of time to come on and have a chat. I know you're a bit jet lagged. You've just flown back from the US, so I appreciate
Exactly.
you making a bit of time. I want to start off with something that you said to me a little while ago. You said we like to do stuff that other people are scared to do, which
Yeah.
I think that's pretty brave. That sounds to me. I mean, what do you mean by that? Why? Tell us about that.
I guess it's always wanting to be different and to qualify that, but I think it's it's doing stuff that other people would say that's going to put your head above the parapet, or it might change your perception of of what we do or how serious we are. There is a real reason that we do things are different, and I'll give you a couple of examples. I mean, when I first started the company, one of the interviews that I had at another agency, we talked about taking people out for press lunches. Now, as a PR, we're famous for going out for lunches. And so, I always say the collective noun of a bunch of PR people is a lunch.
Okay.
So I think that, but a lot of the other agencies I work with, at the time were like, we only take press out for lunch if the client's paying for it. And then we're at 20% on top, right?
Yeah, okay.
So when I started the agency, I was always like, no, I'm going to own those press relationships. So, and I will do that. And I think, that's progressed over the years. We organize a press event at all our main trade shows where we just invite the clients and press, and that's it. It's like a big, it's a get together. We do speed networking at them. And I think, you know, uh, other people might not do that. They're scared to do it because will it work? And, trust me, I think that we've been organizing one particular one in Vegas for 12 years now. And I panic for half an hour before, we open the doors. I think people don't want to invest the money in case it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we've done that. My team at trade shows wear these bright orange and white striped shirts. I do it for a number of reasons. I do it because A, we stand out and everyone can find a bubble. But also it makes it much easier to pack for your trips having a
Yeah, yeah.
uniform.
You know
So
what to take, don't you?
exactly. So I think it's just, I guess I've got quite a high level of risk, and I actually did do a test on this recently. I launched a business in the pandemic for the sectors that we work in. Does it still exist today? No. Is it still a great idea? Absolutely.
Mm.
Um, but at the moment, well, at the time, I just needed a lot more investment to make it work. And I was funding it myself, and I was like, no, I need to concentrate on Bubble. But this is still a great idea, and at some point, I will go back to it. So I think, yeah, I've just always done things that are probably a bit different and a bit
And,
standout.
and those, I mean, you could view them as risks, or you could view them as experiments, really. I mean, do you feel that that kind of rapid experimentation pays dividends, and in what way?
Yeah, I mean, I think not every experiment works.
Mm.
Um, and have I ever done anything that's been an experiment that hasn't worked and that has been a massive disaster? No. But I think you've got to keep doing that. And I think as an entrepreneur, it's not just about what you're doing for your business, it's about what you're doing for yourself. Because like many entrepreneurs, I mean, I've had my business now for 26 years. So if it had gone like that all the time and I hadn't been taking any risks and doing any
Mm.
experiments, then I'd be bored rigid. So I
Yeah.
think, it's in my mentality and that of other entrepreneurs to keep doing these experiments.
Yeah. I mean, I think my reading is that entrepreneurs like to experiment and like to explore and try
Yeah,
stuff. I mean, it is part of the mindset. I mean, tell us about, I mean, one of the other things that you do is you work in quite male-dominated sectors. A lot of the
yeah.
sectors that you work in are quite male-dominated. I mean, does that inspire you to kind of push harder, take more risks, try more interesting stuff? I mean, tell us about the kind of those sectors and what and why pick male-dominated sectors? I mean,
Yeah, why not? I think, I wanted to work in fashion and beauty when I was growing up. And I, at the same time, had this like weird mixed life because I wanted to do that, but my degree's in theology. So I was, studying religion, and at the same time, I was also working at Vogue. So, that was quite a difference. And when I left uni, Condé Nast were amazing. And if you've got on well there, they would put you up with interviews for anywhere. And I interviewed a lot of fashion and beauty PRs and realized quite quickly a couple of things. Firstly, I couldn't afford to work at any of them. I don't have rich parents
Mm.
in any way, and I couldn't afford to stay in London at those salaries. But secondly, I realized that I'd be putting, clothes on hangers and walking around Soho with them for 2 years. And so I just started to look outside of that area and got a job in a technology PR agency that did PR for printing presses and anything to do with printing. And do you know what? It was amazing. I got promoted very quickly. I had my knowledge, having never worked in a PR agency, expanded so quickly. So I just then stayed within technology and ended up working in technology for film and TV, and probably didn't realize how male dominated it was. Having, working in marketing and PR, you're sort of,
Mm.
there's a lot more females in that
Yeah.
part of the world. But when you would go to the bigger trade shows and see that, I mean, I think at the time when I started in the sector, that 5% of visitors to our big trade shows were female.
Wow.
So, which was great because you never have to queue to go to use the bathroom.
Yeah, but
But
that world is changing though, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think female visitorship is now up to a whopping 15%.
Well, it's
So,
not changed that much then.
yeah, so it's not changed that much. I mean, look, if you look at certain parts of the TV and film industry,
Mm.
could almost say that the production part is female dominated. But when you get to the technology side, and we work in other sectors now, around audio visual and physical security and sports tech, that does tend to be, predominantly, male engineers, male CEOs in the TV and film industry, the technical part.
Yeah.
We have less than 2% female CEOs.
Wow. And,
So,
and
yeah.
let's come back to the technology bit in a second. One of the things you just mentioned was that you studied religion. I mean,
Yes.
let me ask you, has the study of religion
Mm.
influenced the way you think about your job as the CEO? Has it influenced the way you think about building a business? I mean, has it had an impact on those kind of processes?
I think I've just always loved people, and actually, if you study religion, that is all about people. It's a mix of history, sociology, psychology, philosophy, anthropology, all the ologies. And so I think that, what it's enabled me to do is look at people, but community.
Mm.
So religion is quite often community.
Mm.
And it comes with different shape buildings,
Yeah.
basically.
And whether you love it or hate it, I mean, religions are quite successful organizations, aren't they? I mean, the
Yeah,
vast majority of the population on the planet are members of one or
yeah,
other of the religions, aren't
absolutely. Yeah.
they? There must be lessons there for building organizations.
Oh, definitely. And I think, whether you want to think that, I would say that there are some religious leaders that are better than others out there, and, definitely in the past. But, if you look towards Buddhism,
Mm.
that element of that, if you look towards the family element of Judaism, there's, even if you look at, the giving back aspects of Islam, that there's teachings in all of them,
Mm.
which I think are, which you can use in sort of running a business.
Yeah. And just to come back to the tech, I mean,
Yeah,
one of the things that's interesting about the tech sector is not, I mean, we've already talked about how it's very male dominated, but
yeah.
but it also changes really quickly, doesn't it? I mean, presumably that makes your life pretty interesting. I mean, do you enjoy that rate of change? I mean, I guess, I mean, tell me I'm wrong, but AI is kind of accelerating that at the moment. I mean, what's your take on that, constant evolution and how you play in that market?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, it would be boring if it didn't change.
Mm.
So, but it's keeping up to what,
Yeah.
it's keeping up to those trends. What we do at Bubble is we are sector experts. So we don't do general tech PR, we don't do general IT PR. We have got four sectors that we are incredibly knowledgeable about. And my team are experts in those. And so they are able to keep up with those trends. And I think, there's business trends, there's technology trends, there's people trends. Um, and it's, there's change, there's change around people and different roles and how people move around companies. And so, that's what we do. We always know things like, who's moved where and what businesses are setting up and M&A. I mean, M&A is huge in all of our sectors. So, that as soon as someone knows that someone's bought someone, we tend to know quite a lot in advance because it's usually us writing the press releases. But
Yeah, pretty handy, really. Pretty handy. That
yeah,
kind of
which is
stuff,
quite
isn't it?
handy. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And let me ask you about that process. I mean, I always think one of the interesting things about the CEO's role is you've kind of got to keep the business moving forward, but you've also got to kind of sort of cut through all the noise. I mean, the thing about the tech sector is there's a lot of noise. I mean, there's a lot of noise at the moment about AI, for example.
yeah.
Sometimes it can be quite difficult to kind of sort out the signal from the noise, to use that phrase. I mean, what's your take on how you stay focused on the right things? I mean, given that amount of noise.
I think I've always had advisors.
Right.
So, that's enabled me to do that. And whether that is individual advisors within our sectors or whether that is a business advisor, that has helped me to do that. And I think they have all taught me about chunking out time for certain things. And it's not to say I'm really good at this because I've just looked at my diary for this week, but I think it's like, blocks of time to just do stuff. And I think it is that, working on the business, not in the business.
Yeah.
I've learned to say no to a lot more than I used to. And even just calls or, delegating, no, this isn't for me. This needs to go to so and so. We restructured the business into business units last year. I have a business unit head for each sector, and that has really helped because my first question is always if some of the team come to me, say something, I'm like, no, go to somebody else for this. This isn't me. I think as the CEO of a business which is across a few sectors, you need you, you almost need enough to be dangerous, right? So I think it's about looking at, I, I I know more about some of our sectors than others, especially we acquired one a business in another sector last year, and I didn't really know anything about it. But I went to their big exhibition, I sat in sessions, I spoke to people, what can you tell me about this? Who are the key players? What do I need to know?
Mm.
If I'm going to need to know something, I read a lot as well. So I
Mm.
think, if I think that helps me cut out some of, I think it cuts out some of the bad noise because I'm, being told what to read
Yeah.
as
I
well.
guess it's about gathering the right intelligence, isn't it?
It is, it absolutely is. And we have, we have senior management team meetings where each BU head has to report back, what 5 things or 5 minutes of your industry right now do I need to know? Because if I do bump into somebody in the street, then I'm going to need to know what is going on in their sector.
Yeah, sure.
And we just like using Slack channel. We have a Slack channel for each BU where we put announcements in and stuff like that.
Yeah, kind of an ongoing process, really, I guess.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you, you mentioned about, your team. I mean, one of the other things I think that's interesting about building a business is how you get the right people on board.
Yeah.
I mean, which is very easy to say, get the right people on board. A little bit more difficult to do, isn't it? I mean, what's your take on that process? How do you approach bringing the right people on board so that you can progress the business as fast as you want to?
I think with Thursday, it's not just getting them on board, it's keeping them on board. But
Yeah,
in terms of getting them on board first, um, gosh, do you know what? We've just started investing a lot more in recruiters again. So get all the recruiters after me now. But we have because you talk about cutting out the noise and stuff and focus. That is a huge time waste. Like putting an ad, we put a roll up on LinkedIn recently, and we had, I think it was like 400 applicants within 24 hours.
it's crazy, isn't it?
And that takes some, and even though you do the qualifying questions, they can still lie and just say, yes, I do that. So, that takes time. So I think that's one thing we've done. Um, I am very much trust things on my gut.
Right.
And if I have a gut feeling about somebody when I meet them, we went through a period where I didn't get involved in the interview process of anybody. Now I do 10 minutes. So I literally 10 minutes, it's the final sign off. And if I say no, we stick with no.
Mm. I mean, I
Um,
always think it's probably the most important thing that you can do as the CEO is to get the right people on board, which is
yeah, and I don't want it. Firstly, I don't want everyone to be like me.
Mm.
I don't need everyone to be like me. I am pretty extrovert. I do need introverts in my business. I need everyone needs to be smarter than me out because I want to learn off them as well.
Mm.
But at the same time, I want to sit next to them at our Christmas lunch.
Yeah.
Or think, oh, if I was on a pub quiz, what would they do? What would they bring? What would they bring to my quiz team?
Yeah.
And if I can't think that, then I do think, well, then they're not for Bubble because as a CEO and a founder, you do base your business around you and your personality. And I think, so you need different people for different things.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just let me pick up the second point that you made, which is about how you keep them. I mean, one of the other things about small organ or relatively small
yeah.
organisms is you've also got to create a culture where people can perform at their best because you can't, unless you don't employ hundreds of thousands of people,
No,
you can't carry many people, can you? Or
no,
anyone, perhaps. So,
no.
what's your take on creating that culture that enables, if you like, a high performing culture that enables people to do their best work? I mean, how do you feel about, I mean, how do you approach that issue?
I think, I think having a hierarchy really helps. I think, people say, oh, just run a flat business like that. And I'm like, well, who do you go to? Who do you go to learn from? Who do you go to ask questions to? Do you tell everyone you're sick for the day? No, because that's a waste of time. So I think, you create that culture where they can, you're building trust, and I think people should be able to trust that they can say something in a meeting and it might not be right, but actually it doesn't matter, or they can do something and it might go wrong,
Mm.
but the consequences aren't going to be that bad. And my job as CEO is to then, if it is to come in and fix something, then I come in and fix it. But I think one of my big sayings that I heard at the end of 2024, and I've really tried to carry it through 2025 and into the future, is clarity is kindness.
Mm.
So, if you can be clear with people, we're just launching a new set of KPIs for the team. They're not there for me to catch them out. They're there so that they know that when they go home, they know they've done a good job
Yeah.
because those KPIs are what I think and the business needs for them to be doing a good job. And so it's a way that their expectations can be set around that. I always say with things like uh, setting, KPIs and things like that. The other thing I will always say to my team is, this is like your first pancake. Your first pancake's always a bit horrible and a bit weird and out of shape. But you get better at making pancakes as they go along
Mm.
on Shrove Tuesday. And I think, these things can be changed. They're not set in stone.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Although I have to say, I've never heard somebody describe it as making pancakes before. I can't unlearn that now.
You
So
can't
thank you
unlearn
for
that
that.
now. I saw
Thank
a
you for
card
that.
with it on recently, and which said your first child is always like your first pancake.
Yeah, yeah. We probably
And I'm the eldest of three, so I know all about that.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, let me just pick up the other point there. I mean, recruiting people's hard. Creating a culture where people can perform
Yeah.
effectively is hard. We're also doing it in what I describe as the kind of social media age, when you know any member of staff could go and say something or do something, and it's visible. It's often visible because of all the social media, because of all the scrutiny. And I mean, what's your take on that kind of process of trying to build a business, acknowledge that people make mistakes and do things wrong, but in an environment that is so scrutinized? Because we're all watched 24 hours a day, if you like. I mean, what's your feelings about that? Has it caused problems for you?
No, not really. I think well, firstly, most of our stuff is business to business, so it's not
Right.
like we have, a team of, people going rogue on the Domino's pizza account and saying, things that they shouldn't have done. It's not like we have that. I think,
Right.
we have guidelines around how to use social media. I think if anything, it's the reverse, and I think people are more often scared to use it and
Right.
scared to use their own tone. Um, yeah, somebody when I was away on this business trip last week said, "Oh, I will connect with you on adult Facebook." And I went, "Oh, what's that?" And he went, "LinkedIn." And I was like, "Oh yeah,
I was just wondering what you meant
I
by that.
know."
Yeah.
He's like, I mean, you imagine my face. And and he was like, "No, LinkedIn." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. It is."
Yeah.
And
Now.
but people need to show a personality. And I think, we don't own our staff's LinkedIn profiles. Nobody does. It is in that I have heard companies are putting that into contracts that now, but yeah, we don't, and we like to give people the freedom. But I think in our line of work, we're communicators, and so I think it's very rare that
Mm.
people would say something that they shouldn't do. But touch wood now, because you never know.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about communication. Let me just explore. I mean, you work in lots of different with clients from lots of different places. Yeah,
Yes.
and I mean, doing business in LA is very different from doing business in London, different from doing business in Singapore or whatever.
Yeah.
What's your take on those kind of cultural nuances, the communicating in very different environments? I mean, what's your feelings about that? Because you have, I mean, in one sense, because you're in the comms game, you can't afford to get it too wrong, can you?
Yeah.
Because it will damage your
Yeah.
reputation. What's your take on that?
I think it's about asking people that are, that work in those sectors. And even like the LA thing's really interesting because, I think when we set the office up out there and it was, I thought you would think LA would do business like London would.
You think
And
so,
they
but it's
don't.
not, is it?
And they really don't. And okay, it's probably not as extreme to how business is done in Tokyo, but there are still cultural differences and things that you should and shouldn't do and shouldn't say. And I think for me, it's just about asking people and say, okay, well, how would I do this? Or
Mm.
ensuring that there is someone there that needs to be that is from that local market. But you're right. It's important. It's important how you write to people. It's important about, how you talk to people and how you greet people in meetings and all of those things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, you
um,
want people to feel welcomed, but also acknowledge that they're different, I guess, don't you?
yeah, and I think, it's almost the same with sort of, different businesses having different cultures and different parts of our sector. Part of the TV and film industry that we work in is very creative. And you'll go to an event and everyone's in, t-shirts, jeans, and trainers, and then, another part of the sector will be, probably not suits, but at least jackets, shirts,
Mm.
and smart trousers or smart jeans and not trainers, and it's that sort of thing. And it's about how you how you fit in with that as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that is something that I talk about a lot in terms of, how, especially for women, is how you dress to make yourself feel more confident, but also to be right in the room.
Yeah.
Uh,
And is that I mean just let's just explore that a little bit because that's a really interesting idea that is that about promoting their creativity? Is it about making them feel comfortable? Is it about the impact that they have on clients, or is it about all of those things? I mean,
I
what's
think,
just
yeah. I think it's about all of those things. I think firstly, it's how you feel about yourself.
yeah.
So, say you go into a meeting and you are, completely overdressed or underdressed, then that might put you on the back foot straight away. So, I mean, my mum always said, dress one better than your audience.
Right.
So, because then you'll never go wrong. Um, but I think it's about having confidence in yourself. And by the way, that it's not about wearing expensive clothes or being able to do all those things, or not being covered in tattoos. I like all of that creative element, but it's also about being remembered, I think, for a good thing. And, one of the reasons we do our stripy shirts at trade shows, we've been doing them now for about 12 years, and everybody goes, "Oh my God, you must work for Bubble." And in fact, it's really embarrassing if someone is wearing a stripy orange and white shirt because people just go up to them and say, "Oh, how long have you been working for Sadie for?" So, but there's doing memorable things like that. If you've got a certain style, then always doing that because people remember you. I know somebody that only ever wears orange, like a piece of orange clothing.
Mm.
And people remember, oh, you're the orange guy.
It's like a signifier.
So yeah, it is, and I think it's about giving you that confidence.
And is that confidence thing about then being able to be bold as a result of being, I mean, it strikes me that people aren't going to be bold or take risks or try stuff if they don't feel confident. I mean, the two things sort of kind of go
Yeah.
hand in hand. I mean, is that about encouraging the confidence so that people can then use that to take risks and do interesting things and stand out? I mean, how do those things fit together?
I think you can have, there's very much having a quiet confidence.
Yeah.
Uh, and different people are attracted to different, types of people. Some people probably think I'm awful and I'm too loud and noisy and I tell all these crazy stories, and I'm not their type of person. But that's fine because there's a million other people out there
Yeah.
that are that other types of person's person. We're a big planet. So I think you're right, the two of those go together. But even if you are an introvert or you're shy, well, I guess those two things come together. But you don't have that. You still need to be confident. One of the worst things women can do is start every email with sorry, I'm sorry this, or start
Mm.
every conversation with, "Oh, I'm sorry. Go, do you mind if I suggest this?" No, just say it. Stop putting yourself in that back foot position all the time.
And do
Uh,
you see that a lot with the women in that you employ in your industry? Do you see that a lot with
I
clients?
just see it a lot in life. I mean, I think, and I'm probably guilty of doing it as well. I worked with a client a couple of years ago and I did this talk about saying sorry. And their boss went out and bought, on my suggestion, went out and bought them all boxes to put on their desk that they had to put a pound in every time they said.
Okay, like a swear box,
Yeah, it was the
sorry
sorry box.
box.
I
Yeah, yeah,
literally, I've
okay.
got pictures of it. It's brilliant. We need one now that you can do sum up or something on it because nobody has any cash.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's in meetings, it's on emails, it's that. And I'm not saying you need to be aggressive. I'm just saying stop apologizing.
It's not about aggression; it's about assertiveness. It seems to me, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. I mean, it's not just for women; it's a good thing.
Absolutely, but also, God, it makes things go quicker. I mean,
Yeah.
we talked earlier about cutting out the noise in our life. I mean, I never had this many meetings in my diary before the pandemic.
Mm. And
Wasn't it?
why? Well, that's interesting. Why has the pandemic changed that? I mean, I can see it's changed. Why the pandemic? I mean, what's the impact of the pandemic on that?
I think it was, we were just able then because these types of technology, I mean, we used to have conference calls, but they weren't really with video. And then we started just before having them.
Right.
But, I think it's the enablement of being able to just do this and say, oh, let's hop on a quick call or let's, which is actually is fine if you've got a question to ask someone and it's easier to just do it that way. It's like picking up the phone, isn't it? But, having the weekly meetings where they could just go on and people are like on mute or they've not got their camera on because they're not interested because they've not been given any role in the meeting.
Mm. And is that something to do with people because they're perhaps working more remotely than they would have done pre-COVID?
Yeah, it is
People wanting to
connection.
feel part of something,
Yeah, yeah,
even if there's not a specific task, they just
yeah,
want to be part of something. I mean, is that what's going on?
yeah, I think so. And I think, which is great, right? That you can do that. But at the same time, meeting people in person it is still, key
Mm.
to do
And
that.
presumably that's why you spend a lot of time in places like LA, is it? And
Yeah, and next week I spent the whole last week in on the West Coast. Fly to the East Coast on Sunday.
yeah, yeah,
So, it's just, and even if people can't meet up, just the offer that you've given them to say, I'm in your city, have you got time to meet up? Makes a huge difference to
yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah. And you mentioned how COVID changed things. I mean, have there been other? I mean, because your business has been around for quite a few years. I mean, have there been other, if you like, inflection points where something's happened that has kind of, perhaps you've reached a fork in the road and got, you've had to make a decision: do we go there or go there? On your journey, have you had other inflection points that have really reshaped things for you?
Yeah, being pregnant.
Right. Okay. So tell
Yeah,
me why did that reshape the business?
because as a business owner, um, it was very much seen. So my son is nearly 16, but it was very much seen at the time that, I mean, we lost contracts. I had a small team. So, and people were like, well, who's going to look after my account? How are you going to do this?
Right.
I would get well, obviously you're going to lose all your brain cells type comments, and this is why I just, it was really when I came back from, you know, my maternity leave that I started working with the gender diversity associations, and
Right.
that was really key to me. We went down from, five people to two people because we just didn't have enough work. I would go into new business meetings and know that when they saw that I was pregnant, that I wouldn't get it.
Right. And that work on diversity, has that changed the way you think about what you do? I mean, or is it simply about a reaction to a situation?
I think it's a bit of everything. I think, I was 26 when I started my business. So, I've grown up through the business with group, quite a sort of big group of people in the main industry that we've been working in for the past few years. And I think I could see things were happening and I could see no one was doing anything about it. And being me, I just couldn't let that happen. And I thought, well, if I can change the lives of 20 women
Mm.
by running a mentoring course, then great. And it was a huge risk. All majority of my clients are male. I was going out there at the time and just saying, look, this isn't right. We now mentor 200 women a year. We've done that for the past 8 years.
Wow.
We've created C-suite courses. We've got, programs for women that want to go into management, into leadership. We organize events across the world, for women. So, it's made a difference to women and men, and I think, I've always said with Rise, nothing will ever change if men aren't involved in this. And we
Mm.
have a huge amount of advocates
So, I
But
mean, that mentoring program is really interesting. I mean, just tell us a bit more about how that works. I mean, you've explained why it's important. I mean,
yeah.
how did you make it happen? Because it's one thing to say, "Oh, we're going to do this." It's another thing because it's additional to your main business, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So I was on the board of Women in Film and TV, and there was a
Right.
part of the sector that, as in my part of the sector, that I worked in the technical part, which wasn't really being looked after. And so I said to them, can I do this as part of Women in Film and TV? And they sort of said, well, not really. And I said, well, I'll just do it myself then. And I had been on a mentoring program myself, and it was amazing. And there were three main elements to it: having a mentor, networking with your cohort, and being involved in industry events and doing that. And it was like, okay, well, just copy that ish.
Right.
So,
Has it had the desired effect? I mean, presumably you feel good about it, but has it changed the careers of those women, do you think?
oh, 100%. I mean, the rise social media feeds and the industry feeds are amazing. We've got a jobs board, and I, found out today that, I think it was like two or three women had moved jobs. They'd been made redundant, found new jobs on the Rise jobs board.
Wow. Wow.
We have an awards ceremony. We've done that. The other thing that I did was our mate one of our main trade shows in Amsterdam, and I launched a safe car initiative. So, there's a few drinks involved in these sort of sectors, and I realized after the pandemic actually that with the use of Ubers, that it was Ubers would just cancel on you all the time in Amsterdam because they get a higher fare. And I was like walking around one night and just having left a drinks event and thought, oh, I just couldn't get an Uber. And then luckily I knew Amsterdam well enough to know where a taxi rank was and had to wait for quite a long time to get a taxi. And I was like, no, right. So I was like, if I can get the sponsorship for it, I'm doing a safe car initiative, and we're now in another sector, and we're doing that this year in Barcelona as well.
Wow, that sounds really exciting. And let me ask you about the flip side to those things. I mean, those sorts of things are obviously very successful and you get a lot out of them. The other thing that happens to every CEO I talk to is that people make lots of mistakes. They get lots of things wrong. I mean, it's partly how you
Oh,
learn.
dear.
I mean, what's your take on the things that don't go so well?
Oh, I know it's an old cliche, but you really do learn from them. I mean, we made an acquisition years ago. It absolutely wasn't right. I was doing it probably for my ego. I was like, right, next stage acquisition. Yeah, it was a tiny, tiny thing, but I knew about a week before I should pull out of it, and I didn't. And oh my God, I had so much pain with it. There's not a lot that would make me cry, but that did. And I was very lucky. I was able to offload it, within 6 months. I was able to offload it to somebody else. But I lost a bit of money on it, but I gained about 400 million new grey hairs. Then I
I mean, they're very distracting as well as the stress, aren't they? They take
Oh,
you away from what you need to be doing.
and there's this whole thing. I think when you're in any role, but I think especially as a CEO, you need time to do something where you're not working, but things come into this subconscious part of your brain that you go, oh right, oh yeah, okay. And if you're distracted by something like that is very negative, and then you're doubting yourself and all of those things, then you don't have that time to do that, because that subconscious time is just thinking, how do I get out of this? What have I done? Why did I do it? And so, mistakes will always happen, and I'm sure I will make a lot more
Yeah.
in
I don't think
business.
you, I mean, you can improve on it. You can get more things right than you get wrong, but it's still very difficult. I don't think you can avoid it totally. I mean, it doesn't matter how good you get, I think. So it's a really interesting conundrum that. Let me ask you about when you look back on the journey that you've been on. I mean, you've been building this business for a good few years. I mean, if you were to go back to day one, is there anything that you would do differently, knowing what you know now?
I'd probably have a business partner.
Because,
Because again, another cliche, is quite lonely.
yeah.
I think I have a great team, and I have some senior members of the team who I can share things with, but at the end of the day, it's my risk. It's my risk for my family's future, as much as anything else. And, sometimes making those decisions can be easier, when you're with someone, which is why I have a board, I have an advisory board and I have an advisor and all of those things.
Yeah.
I have those. But yeah, I mean, there wasn't anyone around me at the time that I could have done that with. And I think you either do it from the start or you don't do it. I know people that have taken on partners sort of, mid-stage, and it's never quite been right. And that's why, we're going through an acquisition stage at the moment of acquiring businesses. And I'm very much like, this is an acquisition. This is not a merger. I'm not merging. This
I mean, it's
is,
very difficult to get those things right, isn't it?
yeah.
I mean,
It,
most acquisitions go wrong. I mean, that's the truth of the matter, isn't it? I mean, they're very difficult things to get right. No matter how much,
mm.
you want it, there's always a good chance they can go wrong.
And you can work on them for a long time and
Yeah.
then they just go wrong at the last minute. So before you signed, and
Mm.
we experienced that last year. So and they are a lot of effort, but when they do work, they can be incredibly rewarding.
Yeah. And do you think the experience that you've had has changed you? Are you a different CEO to the way you were when you started? And
Oh,
in
so
what way?
Well, I think I was a very young managing director who was basically a good account director in what I did. And then I just, happened to have the keys to the stationery cupboard, basically. So, I've learned a huge amount about finance. I've also learned a huge amount about what I'm not good at, finance. So, I again know enough to be dangerous, but, I know enough, I try to learn everything about finance, and my brain doesn't work that way. I found out when I was 48 I was dyslexic. So
Yeah. And
maybe
has
there's
that had an influence, that dyslexia? Does it help now that you know you're dyslexic?
Oh God, yeah, it's been huge. I've really well, apart from the fact that I now know why I miss out letters and write things the wrong way around. I have a very fast way of thinking. When I drive, I'm probably 5 cars ahead of most other people. I walk really
But
fast.
that sounds to be quite a good thing, thinking ahead.
Oh, it really is. But it's a very different way of thinking,
Mm.
quite often. And I think people don't talk enough about the different way of thinking for dyslexic people. They tend to focus on the we can't read. I'm a professional proofreader, so I absolutely can read.
Mm.
Um, I just do things in a slightly different way. And I think when I found out, I did send an email to my team at the time and explained that, and it's not to use it as an excuse in any way, but I will, sometimes I am in meetings and somebody like be talking really slowly and da, 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 and I've thought of the answer to what they're going to say, and I find it really hard not to interrupt.
Mm. Mm. I mean, developing that kind of patience
Yes.
also comes with being the CEO, doesn't it? Because the bigger the team, the more people that you've got in there that are different to you.
Yeah, it really does. So I think, I've learned, when I learned that I was never going to be the world's best CEO stroke FD, I very much gave that job to somebody else. And I think that's how I've learned. And yeah, gosh, I don't know, still probably 90% the same me. I've just got more knowledge and more experience, and
Mm.
but using, gut feeling is still really important to me.
Yeah. And have you ever had, I mean, you talked about having advisors and people helping you at board and so on help you. I mean, have you ever had any really, really good advice?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, loads, but it's always applicable to the situation rather than, I think, one of the biggest things has always been, if you're not great, it's like find somebody else that is great at doing that. Um, if you see two amazing people, take the risk and hire both of them. because there will always be, something will happen that will enable that to, to work out, and you don't want to miss out on that opportunity to hire two great pieces, two great roles and things like that. I think, just being told to take time off. I have a break booked every quarter, that which sounds like I go on holiday every quarter. I don't, but every quarter, at least if I've got, I will have one night away or one day off to do something.
Mm.
And that is because in that time, that's when I get that back of the head, wherever it is your subconscious thought goes on. That's when that happens, and I recharge. I'm go go go, but I do recharge on holiday. I don't do anything. People are like, oh, but you have really active holidays, and I'm like, no.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a bit like that on holiday, but I always end up coming back with notebooks full of ideas. Stupid.
Well, I know, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, like, what best tip ever? Have a notebook by your bed.
Yeah.
Because entrepreneurs don't sleep that well. So, I think doing that. I do jigsaw puzzles. I love jigsaw puzzles.
Really?
Yeah, and
And you
and
look so
it's
normal.
I know exactly. You see the amount I got for Christmas. Um, but it's in my house. It's on the dining room
Right.
table. I just sit and do it for like half an hour a day, and
Wow.
it just my blood pressure goes down. I sit there, I'm able to do something, I mean, I play golf as well, but you know, that is quite, I'm competitive, so I
Mm.
get competitive with myself.
And one of the things that I was just saying to you earlier on, I've got a friend who's a very good golfer. One of the things that interests me about golf is, I mean, my friend was, it's not about playing other people, it's about playing yourself. The biggest
Yeah.
competitor in golf is yourself. I mean, is that why you like golf? Does that have an impact? That thing about competing with yourself, is that important to you?
Yeah, I think it is. I think you can see if you put the practice in that the
Mm.
results are there. I think you can, and vice versa, by the way. I mean, I played twice last year, and I went and played recently, and it was like, starting over again. But, for me, I've always loved the etiquette of golf. I think having that level um, of manners around it, shaking someone's hand when you finish a round, allowing somebody to, don't walk in front of people, don't, and people think it's snobby. It's not, it's just really well mannered. I think, being outside,
Mm. There's
it's,
a lot to be said for
there's
that.
a lot to be said for it.
Yeah.
And doing something where you can't use your phone, or especially sort of like, these days. So, and being with different people. I mean, I've played golf with some really randomly amazing people,
Mm.
of all different, ages, sizes, ethnicities. And it's great. I mean,
And,
sometimes.
and are you like Donald Trump? Do you like to do deals on the on the links?
No, but I have made new clients and chat about business to
Right.
people when I play. So, yeah, I'm sure there's some deals that I've done that have come out of me playing golf. But yeah, I need to play a bit more regularly. That is my goal for 2026, is to play more
That's
regularly.
very healthy to me. Well, a couple of final questions. If you were to offer some advice to a rookie CEO starting out, what would it be?
Um,
Other
surround
than start doing jigsaws.
Other than start doing jigsaws, I think surround yourself by people
Mm.
that are more intelligent than you, or can give you different levels of advice. So, there are schemes out there. There's mentoring programs, there's young entrepreneur programs. People generally want to give back.
Mm.
And I think, they are pleased to do that. I think as entrepreneurs, we don't tend to like to ask for help
Mm.
for lots of reasons, and I'm not quite sure what that is. So, I think definitely asking for help is absolutely key.
Yeah.
So, and you'll be surprised how many people want to give it. I think know your numbers. As I said, I'm not finance isn't my key. That it's not my go-to. If I'd choose to do maths and English at school, it wouldn't have been maths.
No.
but the numbers tell you the story.
Yeah.
And
Knowing the numbers is the key to understanding the business, isn't it?
it is. And we start all of our management team meetings, our board meetings with the numbers because, without that, there is no story. And, that data-driven aspect for any business is really key.
And would you say that that data-driven approach is part of the reason that Bubble's successful? Is that part of what's behind it?
Yeah, I mean, we've been able to show clients results through data. We've been able to see what we're doing with our time. We've been able to interpret things. I think there's a softer feel around what we do and why we've been successful and being those experts. Um, but we have looked after, investments and where to spend money, really,
Mm.
which is important. And it's not always, we've had some bad years, absolutely. Um, but, keeping an eye on those things is really important.
Yeah. Well, one last question, which is not really about you and your business, but about the world that we're in at the moment. And we talked a little bit about AI earlier on. I mean, what's your take on the way AI is going to impact on your world? I mean, strikes me that it's probably going to have a fairly big impact. I mean, what's your take on what's happening and the impact it's likely to have?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. Firstly, business efficiencies.
Mm.
So, is huge. So that, that's a positive impact on what we do. Absolutely. I think, the second thing around at the moment, the LLMs are working off earned media. So suddenly PR is very important.
Yeah.
They're not grabbing that info from companies' websites, they're grabbing it from Forbes and the
Yeah.
articles written about you, not by you. So, so PR is big, that is going to have a huge difference on that side. I think when people say, oh, you'll be replaced by AI, no way, we are, what we do is about relationships. So,
You won't be replaced. It'll probably change the way you work.
yeah, maybe, I think, I mean, just simple things like having all of our calls recorded and being able to check sentiment of calls. So
Mm.
that's one thing, and we're probably, not the best at putting AI through our agent. PR agencies don't tend to be the best people at doing this yet.
Mm.
Um, I know lots of web development agencies and they're miles ahead, but
Mm.
that's because that's what they do for a job. So it would be weird if they weren't right.
Yeah.
So I think that they will, it will have an effect. Will it replace us? Absolutely no way. Business is still, you still buy off people.
That's right. Still, it's always going to be about people, isn't it? It's
So
difficult to see business in any other way, actually.
yeah, I mean, what you can do now is you can with some caution, by the way, is you can put, how should I have this conversation with so and so based on you knowing what
Mm.
type of person they are. So, it's, you can put that into there, but don't trust everything that comes up.
It
We
still requires judgment, which is why it's still about people, isn't it?
it does, and I think things require check. You still have to check on these things as well.
Yeah.
So, um,
Sadie, I mean, whichever way it plays out, it's going to be an interesting few years, would
oh,
be my
absolutely.
take on it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, thank you for taking a bit of time to come and have a chat. I really appreciate you telling the story. I mean, fascinating journey. And by the sounds of things, lots of interesting stuff on the horizon for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We are in sort of scaling growth mode at the moment. We're lucky part of our business is in sports. We've got a great couple of years of sports coming up, with the World Cup and then LA 28. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity out there for us.
Yeah, all good stuff. Sadie, thanks for coming on, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, Paul. Bye.
Bye bye.